Hello, my name is Professor Rad, and today we're going to talk about rewriting fractions with common denominators and what it means for fractions to have a common denominator. So in this and the next two videos, we're going to find a few different techniques to write fractions so they have the same denominator. So I've got a definition here since we're going to be using the phrase common denominator quite a bit. So two or more fractions that have the same denominator are said to have a common denominator. So when we say a denominator is a common denominator, it just means that both fractions have the same denominator. So let's look at one method for finding common denominators. So this method is probably the easiest of the three methods we're going to talk about, but it's also kind of like the sloppiest. And sloppy is not bad. I'm not saying that, to like insult this method. I'm saying that because sometimes it's going to make our lives harder than it needs to. So on the one hand, this method is easy because it's extremely straightforward. Bada bing, bada boom, it's done and easy. But on the other hand, it might make things in the future for us a little bit tricky. So let's go ahead and see how we can use this. So the first way, or one way you can get a common denominator, is by multiplying the two denominators together. So we've got three examples we're going to work through. And in each of these examples, we're going to find a common denominator. And then we're going to rewrite the fractions with that common denominator. So I'm going to use CD to represent common denominator. So this method just says whatever the denominators are, multiply them. So 3 times 14. So bring my friend here. 3 times 14 is going to get us 42. So 42 is a common denominator. So if all I do is ask you to find a common denominator, that's all you have to do. 42, the end. Yeah, that's not bad, right? Now, in this case, they also want us to rewrite the fractions with the denominator of 42. So let's go ahead and do that. So we want to take 2/3, multiply it by something, so that we end up with a fraction that has a denominator of 42. And we want to take 5/14 and multiply it by something, so we get a denominator of 42. So this is the technique that we talked about in the last video. So if you want to rewrite a fraction with a particular denominator, you're going to take your desired denominator and divide it by the denominator you have. 42 divided by 3 is going to give us 14. 14 is the magic number that we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by here. 3 times 14 is 42, and 2 times 14 is 28. So this means that 2/3 and 28/42 are the same amount, same number. Let's do the same thing for the second fraction. So we want to rewrite 5/14, so it has a denominator of 42. We'll do that by dividing our desired denominator by the denominator we have. 42 divided by 14, that's going to give us 3. So that means 3 is the magic number for this one. We're going to multiply top and bottom by 3. 5 times 3 is 15. So that means that 5/14 is the same as 15/42. All right, example B is pretty much the same process. So we're going to find a common denominator by multiplying the denominators. So our common denominator is going to be 16 times 8. Whew, it's going to give us 128. Again, if all I did was ask for you to find a common denominator, we would be done. but this one also wants us to rewrite each fraction with that denominator. So 1/16 times something, and we want that denominator of 128. And then 5/8 also times something to get that denominator of 128. So how do we find that something? How do we figure out what numbers to multiply by? Well, we're going to divide our desired denominator by the denominator we have. So 128 divided by 16 gives me 8. Whatever I put on bottom, I've also got to put on top. And this is easy. 1 times 8 is 8. All right, same process for the next one. Divide 128 by 8, and you get 16. So whatever I put on bottom, have to put on top as well. And then we'll do 5 times 16 for that new numerator and get 80. Okay, let's do one more. So this time we have 3 fractions. Guess what? Same technique. Just multiply all the denominators together. So we're going to do 4 times 6 times 15. Oh, let's type it off screen, but we got 360 when we did that. So a common denominator is 360. Now we've got to rewrite all 3. So we've got 3/4 times something is going to have a 360 in the denominator. 7/6 times something will give us a 360 in the denominator. And 4/15 times something will get us 360 in the denominator. All right, do we know the drill yet? So we're going to take our desired denominator and divide by the denominator we have. And that tells us what we need on top and bottom. And then we'll multiply to get the new numerator. So why don't you pause the video here and work that out. And then when you're done, unpause and we'll check my answers against yours and see if we match. Okay, so let's see how we did. When I did 360 divided by 4, I got 90. So I put 90 on top and bottom. And then 3 times 90 gave me 270. For the second fraction, I did 360 divided by 6, and that gave me 60. So then 7 times 60 gave me 420. And then lastly, I did 360 divided by 15. That gave me 24. And 24 times 4 gave me 96. Now, if I wanted to check my answers, this process is essentially unsimplifying. So if I want to check my answer, when I simplify it, I should get the fraction I started with, assuming the fraction I started with was in simplest form. So let's try 270 over 360. And when I simplify, I get 3/4. So that matches what I started with. Let's try the next one. 420 out of 360 simplifies to 7/6, which is also what I started with. And then for the last one, I had 96 out of 360. And that simplifies to 4/15, which matches what we started with. So you can use the simplify feature on your calculator to check your answer at the end. All right, so have a few problems for you to try here, just a couple actually. So the first one, try and find a common denominator for those 2 fractions. And then on the next one, you're going to do like what we did in this example, finding a common denominator and rewriting with that common denominator. In the next video, we're going to use a technique that only applies in some special cases, but it will often give us a smaller common denominator than this technique that we used. So I'm looking forward to seeing you then. And in the meantime, have a great day.